What is going on, everyone? The Eagles lose an emotional game yesterday to the Falcons, 24-20. I was all over the place. I was excited at one point. I was screaming at one point. I was fist pumping, going nuts, jumping up and down. I almost hit my head on the top of the ceiling. But at the end of the day, the Eagles lost. They showed heart. They showed fight. There is something to be said about that. But at the end of the day, you have an L in the L column. There's a 1 in the L column, and that's disturbing. It seemed like they left that game saying, did we let one slip? Even though we didn't have the right to win the game, it didn't feel as if the Eagles deserved to win the game. Yeah. Did we let one slip? Would the 2017 Eagles come out with this victory? I'm here with Shelfie. What are your thoughts?
I do think they let this game slip away, and that's not to take anything away from Atlanta. The Eagles were obviously dealing with injuries early in this football game. They lose Dallas Goedert, Alshon Jeffery, and Desean Jackson. That is a big deal. I understand football's next man up. There's really no excuses. I agree with that. But I don't think I've ever seen this many important key weapons go down in the first quarter of a football game before. We had Mac Hollins and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside as our out wide receivers for 3 quarters of football. That is just, and we're a football team that only carries 2 tight ends. So I know people on Twitter were like, well, you still have Zach Ertz. I don't want to hear it. We only carry 2 tight ends. We run 2 tight end sets. Losing Dallas Goedert is a game plan adjustment for us, first and foremost. There was really no rapport between Carson Wentz and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. You saw some passes in the third quarter where Carson's looking at him like, you got, especially that back shoulder throw on the sidelines. We've seen Alshon make that play a handful of times. J.J. wasn't even looking at Carson. Carson was clearly upset about it. My biggest takeaway from this game, though, is the lack of creativity in the run game. And I know this is something that's going to get you going. We ran inside zones from the gun all night, and it just seemed like the defensive line for the Falcons had their ears pinned back in pass rush. They had no concern about the run game whatsoever the entire night, and I think that was the biggest thing outside of just adjustments on the fly with a JV wide receiver core last night. I think that the lack of run game and their defensive line just getting after it was the biggest key of the football game.
Yeah, well, you look at the Falcons, and last week they struggled against the run against the Vikings. They only threw the ball 10 times, so you would think after all of our injuries occurred and we didn't have our best weapons that we would run the ball more. The ratio was 51 passes to 21 runs, something in that area, so there was a big difference there. Here's the thing. Our offensive line, I thought, did horrible.
Yeah.
And that affects the run game. If your offensive line can't block for you, you're not going to have anything. And at the end of the day, the passing was almost what got us back into this game. So it logically, you look at it and say, well, why didn't we run more? Which we definitely should have at times. But I don't think that was the difference in winning or losing this game. Because at the end of the game, you had Carson Wentz making these elite throws and actually doing a fantastic job. That one play where his knee almost touched the ground, dude, that was insanity. It was insanity.
Wizardry is what it was. Absolute wizardry.
His ability to escape the pocket is nuts.
That's what made that 2017-18 season when we won the Super Bowl, when he was just phenomenal all year. That's what he was doing every game. It seemed like on third down, you were not bringing him down first. Carson Wentz doesn't get sacked on third down. I don't know what – he is a magician back there. The guy just extends plays. It's very Big Ben-esque, the way he gets out of the pocket and keeps things alive and his eyes downfield even. But that play was just raw, just straight talent. You can't even teach that. You can't practice that. That man's kneecap was a quarter inch from the ground, and he throws a dot to a receiver on the run coming across the field. It was just a tremendous play and a tremendous quarter of football from both teams. But to get back to what you were saying with the offensive line, I said this last night. I think that may have been the worst game that we've seen that offensive line play in a couple years. They got beat by the Falcons decoy. And the Falcons were rushing 4 for the majority of the night, and they were getting beat.
Absolutely. It was bad. Sam Alshon had probably his worst game I've ever seen. He was getting waxed. He had so many penalties called on him. It was bad.
Shambles.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No doubt about it. As I flip to my notes here, because I realize I'm on like a Phillies-Mets game on my notes. I don't know what the hell is going on. That's how discombobulated I am this
Justin
morning.
Vargas.
No, we're not doing this. This is Eagles. This is Eagles. But this is the thing with Carson. Why did he look so elite? And he did. Elite is almost an understatement at the end of that game. But why was it so horrendous for the first 2.5 quarters? Why can't we see a 48-minute football game to that degree?
Yeah. See, week 1, we broke this down totally. I feel like we had things that we could point at and say they need to do this better, they need to do this better, blah, blah, blah. Last night's a little bit of – it's kind of almost hard to assess. It's like you can put a little bit of it on the play calling, lack of the run game. You can put a little bit on the fact that they lost 3 of their top 5 weapons in the passing game. They didn't have – then you could also put a little bit of it on the fact that Carson Wentz got popped early in that game. His ribs were clearly bothering him in the first half of that game. Even though he had no rapport with some of the guys that came in and the play calling was a little sketchy and the offensive line was getting beat, he was still missing throws that he, quite frankly, doesn't miss. Handful of them in that first half. So I think there was a bunch of different factors that played into a really bad first half last night, but there's really no excuse for it if we're going to be a Super Bowl contender. They got to get healthy. They got to run the ball better. And next week at home against Detroit, they've got to come out and they have to score in the first quarter next week. I think that is crucial because this is 2 weeks now, regardless of how it played out. This is back-to-back weeks now where we had brutal first halves.
I love Doug Peterson.
Same.
This is something, though, that does need to be addressed. Now, we've seen a whole year of it, and now 2 games into this year. We need to fix this issue. It's going to start getting criticized to an even bigger degree than it already is because it is a constant theme now. We have to get better at that. But speaking of Doug Peterson, there was a moment in this game where I realized, holy shit, this man is different. And it was, we were at the 4th and 4. Well, it was 4th and goal, but we were at like the 4-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And if we kicked a field goal there, it would have been an 8-point game. And every single coach in this league would kick that field goal. Sean McVay, the offensive guru, would have kicked that field goal.
Mike Tomlin might have punted.
Yeah. No doubt about it. But Doug Peterson, and you know what? I will have to admit, at the time, I thought you get the points. Make it a 1-possession game. We are not finding any offense we're not finding any rhythm in offense. We got a chance to make it 1 possession. Kick the field goal, Doug. But the dude has balls. We go for it. He does. He's got big cahoons. We go for it, and we make it a 5-point game. We ended up missing the 2-point conversion because of the new rule. He gave himself up. I know.
Trash.
I know. But listen, it was which at the end of the day could have played a big factor in the outcome because we would have only needed a field goal. But at the end of the day, that changes everything.
Yeah.
The storyline out of that is the guy has balls, and I can't believe he actually went for it. And that changed the entire mentality of the football team and how much faith he has in this offense, and it changed the flow and momentum of the game.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And man, this one's tough. As you can see, I'm still clearly hurt here.
Oh yeah, this is only so many hours after the game.
And there was a handful of plays late in that game. The 2-point conversion, the big one though that I am not one to point at one play and
Don't
say
do it to him.
That's the play that changed the game.
Don't do it to him.
My man Nelson Agholor has got to catch that ball going down the sideline.
He had a great game yesterday.
He did really have a good game, and he ended up having a great grab on 4th down a few plays later to extend the drive, but that catch was 6 points short of making up for the drop. I'm not one to blame 1 or 2 plays in a football game where, we had a whole half of bad football. We didn't run the ball well all night. Our offensive line got beat all night. Carson got popped in the ribs. It was a weird football game. You could point at a handful of different plays and say it could have gone the other way. But that drop is clear-cut a touchdown. That was an absolute dot right in the breadbasket, in stride, wouldn't have missed a step, would have walked and cruised into the end zone. Atlanta would have had the ball with 2 minutes left. So, again, devil's advocate, you don't know what Atlanta would have done with the ball. But it's really hard. That one play took the wind out of my sails, and I haven't gotten it back yet.
I agree. It's a shame. And listen, if it was anybody else, if it was Matt Collins, if it was J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, if it was anyone else, I think the narrative would be different. But it was Nelson Agholor, and we know how this kid's career started. But I speak of the narrative. If Carson Wentz responded with that after Julio Jones had that touchdown, and we will get to that side of it because the defensive side of this game was something else. If Carson Wentz responded with a dot down the sideline for a touchdown, everything changes on what Carson Wentz is.
Mm-hmm.
But Nelson dropped the football. It's a shame. But let's talk about the defense, because they did allow that 54-yarder to Julio Jones on that blitz. And you know what? If we didn't blitz all night long, we wouldn't have even been in that situation. So I look at Jim Schwartz and I say, that might have been the best game you've ever coached here in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought Jim Schwartz had an excellent game. People want to say, oh, look what Matt Ryan did. He tried to give you the game. That's what the Falcons fans and Cowboys fans, I can't believe you didn't win with Matt Ryan trying to give you the game. He gave us the game, air quotes, because of how aggressive our defense was to bring the blitz and force him into making mistakes. We made him make mistakes, and Jim Schwartz isn't even the guy to blitz ever. So for him to say, I need to keep this team in the game somehow, I'm going to bring the blitz all night long once he figured it out, I got to tip my cap to Jim Schwartz because I thought he had an excellent game. Even though it got waxed on that Julio Jones touchdown because of the bubble screen, we wouldn't have even been there without him being that aggressive.
I do have one critique on that bubble screenplay that was eating at me in the moment. Why were we 10 yards off Julio blitzing 8?
That's a little nitpick to me.
Not really.
Yeah, it is.
When you blitz 8, you don't give Julio 10 yards to run around. That's actually kind of common sense.
It's worked all game, though.
They ran bubbles all night. How did you not see that coming?
You can't be mad at Jim Schwartz for a play.
I'm not mad at Jim Schwartz. Yeah. I'm not saying it's on Jim Schwartz. I don't know if it was Russell Douglas or Darby, but he was too far off.
Well, listen, Darby. That was the worst game I've ever seen in my life out of that guy.
Brandon Fletcher in disguise.
Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas. I mean, Rasul Douglas had a pretty nice night. Sidney Jones looks way better than Ronald Darby, and that's bad to me. I mean, that's bad.
I just don't understand playing 10 yards off when they need 3 and we're blitzing 8. I'm a Madden guy. I'm just saying it doesn't make any sense. And I'm not saying that's on Jim Schwartz. That could have been an in-the-moment brain fart from whoever was responsible for Julio on that play. Looking at that play back, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, here it is. It was 4th and 3, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing 10 yards off Julio, my guess is, knowing Jim Schwartz, don't let him beat you long, right? So we'll let them get the first down because we're bringing all the pressure. So if they get the first down, they get the first down, but we're going to rely on the pressure to stop that.
So are we relying on a one-on-one tackle in the flats from our corner on Julio then? We're letting him get the ball?
What we're doing is we're expecting our pressure to get there so they won't even get the ball off to that degree. They made the adjustment. You saw Matt Ryan. He saw it. Like, that wasn't originally what was probably going to happen on a 4th and 3.
Yeah, he audibled in.
Correct. So that wasn't the original play. It happened with the snap of their fingers, and then they made it happen. It happened so quick out there on the line.
I don't know what our mindset was what were we looking for pre-snap? Because they were running those bubble screens all night.
Here's my issue with it if I was to scream at it, and I'm not even going to. We didn't disguise the blitz enough. That was we're bringing it, you know? Yeah. If we were to maybe say we're going to bring it and pull out, and maybe that would have changed everything, or if we would have gave it a different look and brought the blitz, then it changes how Matt Ryan would have saw it at the line of scrimmage.
Well, I know how Matt Ryan saw it at the line of scrimmage. He saw 8 guys screaming, "I'm coming," and he looked over and Julio had 10 yards of space to do whatever he wants.
All night long. So you're living and dying by what worked all night long. Yeah, okay. All right, there's your reaction. You're disappointing because it didn't work, but at the time, it's what happened.
I'm not mad at the blitz. I'm mad at giving Julio space at the line of scrimmage.
Well, our cornerbacks never put pressure at the line.
He's the kind of guy who can beat you over the top. He's also the kind of guy that can stiff arm you through the ground. Like, you don't you don't keep Julio in front of you. Like, if you're telling me we're okay with Julio getting the ball at the line of scrimmage and just getting 4 or 5 yards, I have zero confidence in Darby, Jones, or Douglas making a one-on-one tackle against that man in the flats. None.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but that's their thing. You have some pros with blitzing, and then it comes with some cons. I mean, you got to take it for what it is.
I'm hurt.
I clearly. All right, well, we'll move on from that. But I thought the defense helped us win this game. They kept us in the game the whole time, even with Ronald Darby getting torched 2 plays in a row that didn't end up being touchdown. Well, the first 2 were bad throws. And then the third was the how do you do?
I see a breakdown on Twitter. Apparently, that third one, there was supposed to, the one that actually scored, apparently
Sendejo it was.
Sendejo was supposed to be over the top.
He was. So that was a miscommunication on
you still can't get beat for a third. Like, you just got beat twice. You can't get beat again.
Well, how about Zach Ertz? So it's not really getting criticized, but if you're running a route, you got to know where the sticks are.
Yep.
You're a half inch shy. He was very disappointed with himself after the game, and you can see it when he was getting interviewed by the beat reporters in the locker room and whatnot. He was disappointed in himself, and man,
there really were a handful of plays that came down to a yard last night.
So many plays.
Yard.
So many plays. And that's the beauty of football. This game started out a dud, and it turned into one of those crazy, insane games. But I look at this and I say, okay, it's September. We lost the game in September. Under Doug Peterson, we've started out 1-1 the last 2 years. So this isn't going to change if we make the playoffs or not. This is a September loss, all right? Everyone's going to get very emotional about it, and the fact that, we're going to fall too far behind the Cowboys. Like, it's September, and the Cowboys played the Redskins and the Giants,
correct.
Okay? Listen, the Cowboys look good. I'm not going to deny that, but let's not get too crazy and think that they're Super Bowl champions because they won 2 games in September.
We knew 3 weeks ago, before the season started, that the Cowboys were going to be a good football team, and they're the team that we have to beat to win the division. Losing to the Falcons and them beating the dumpster of the league is it means nothing.
I know.
And we knew going into this football game with Atlanta that they were going to be a desperate football team at home. And their defense came out and played. We've already hinted on this. Their defense came out and was throwing the body around. They were trying to hurt people last night, and they did. That's what desperate football teams do in their home opener. The scary thing about Atlanta going into that game came to fruition, and we've seen it. Just a little bit short.
Definitely. But where I was going with that was it's a September loss, and I feel like this team, this was a painful loss for them. You can see the emotion of how hard these guys fought and battled. And listen, is there moral victories in football? Yes and no. At the end of the day, like I've stated before, there's a 1 in the L column. So is that moral victory? No. But at the same time, the way this team competed, there's a special bond in that locker room. And knowing how painful this is, we'll never know. But if we find out that we win a game 5 weeks, 6 weeks from now, that we grinded out and did something different based off of the outcome today, we'll never know that's the correlation. But that's how sports works. And this can be, I don't want to say a learning experience, but you can take away this pain and add it to the season down the road, and it could play a factor on why we came out on top in a different week.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I'm okay with calling it a learning experience. Even if it's not X's and an O's learning experience, just don't remember how you felt when you messed up against Atlanta on Sunday night, because even if it's just a little bit of an extra motivator later down the road when you got to make a big play in a similar situation, it can play a role. And like you said, we've started 1-1 2 years in a row now. I believe we were 1-1 the Super Bowl year.
Yes, we were. We lost to the Kansas City Chiefs that second game.
You're absolutely right. And that was another road loss against a good football team. It's going to happen. The good news is we get Detroit at home next week. We can turn around. I mean, not that they're a bad football team. They're 1-1. But
well, time out before you keep going. With how banged up we are, we have the Lions on Sunday, like you said, and then a quick turnaround in Lambeau on Thursday night. So we have a lot of football in our next 2 games, a lot of football in a short amount of time, and Green Bay looks good.
Aaron Rodgers has a defense.
Yeah, we'll get into previews.
We'll talk about that next week.
But still, this is my concern. Right now, we're emotionally invested in the outcome of the game, and we talked about the injuries. But I don't think we're at the moment right now, just because of how raw the emotion is. We're not at the moment where we are addressing, wow, Tim Jernigan left with a boot. wow, who's going to be our defensive tackle now after losing Malik Jackson and Jernigan? What's Desean Jackson like? Because apparently he was limping pretty bad. We're not at the point now where we're thinking, wow, we actually have holes. We're in the, damn, we should have won that game mentality. So that's going to play a big factor down the road. Maybe not for Detroit, but who knows where this leads to in terms of long-term injuries.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, and it's frustrating too.
I was going to have to make some moves. I wonder if you go after Minkah Fitzpatrick. Is that even our concern at this time? Well, I should be.
You see a stat on Twitter say Fitzpatrick got targeted 6 times in the Patriots game, and he gave up 120 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Oh no! Listen,
he's on the Dolphins, and they were playing Tom Brady. There's no way he's playing motivated football right now. First of all, but like we were saying, I agree. We are going to have to make some sort of move. Football's football. People are going to get hurt. People are going to get banged up. But this is a dramatic, hyper-extended situation. We're talking Malik Jackson down, Timmy Jernigan down, Desean Jackson down, Alshon Jeffery down, Dallas Goedert down. These are crucial. These are 5 starters. There's only 22.
That doesn't even factor in how bad Zach Ertz's ribs are or whatever the case may be, because that dude got banged up too. So there's other lingering stuff where people play through it, but it doesn't mean they're not hurting. This is going to be a week where you won't find out who's playing until Saturday afternoon, and that's a problem because you need to go into the week game planning for the Lions.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, and you're gonna have Cowboys fans and Giants fans all over you. I don't want to hear it. Injuries.
Oh, I know.
There's only 22 positions on offense and defense. We're talking about 5 starters potentially not being on the field, some being Pro Bowlers and legitimate game changers. It's tough. Hopefully, come Wednesday, we just get one of those little text messages. Desean Jackson's fine. Alshon Jeffery.
I think that when you look at the injuries, I think the worst one is going to be Tim Jernigan because now we have a serious hole next to Fletcher Cox. And speaking of Fletcher Cox, he's not right. I mean, I don't think this is rust of not playing in the preseason. To me, there's something wrong. Apparently, he still has this lingering toe-foot injury problem. He doesn't look right. Now, Chris Collinsworth yesterday said he hasn't been affecting the game because he hasn't been getting an insane number of sacks, but he draws double teams every single night. So
and we're only rushing 4. He's getting double teamed, and we're rushing 4. It's difficult.
Definitely.
Up until the third quarter last night, there was no blitzers to make the guards think a little bit extra on that chip. Like if you're going to help block Fletcher Cox, knowing that there's no blitzer is a huge help. But we seen them make adjustments on that last night. But I'm not worried about Fletch personally.
No, I'm not worried.
I know you're not worried about him, but I think just the defensive line as a whole not getting as much pressure as we're used to and getting banged up at the same time definitely raises some red flags, though, because now it's kind of like a double whammy. It's like even before Jernigan got hurt, we were already kind of like, man, this isn't looking too hot. Like the 4-man rush last week was irrelevant. I don't know what is this going to look like next week? If Jernigan doesn't play, what does it look like?
It's going to look like Fletcher Cox, Hakeem Spence, and Hassan Ridgeway, who had a crucial penalty late there. Yeah, dude,
how
this
did
is the
we
thing.
Get here?
It's crazy. We came in with all this depth, and now we are where we are. It's similar to last year. Remember last year, our receivers to start the year, I can't even think of their names off their head. That's how irrelevant they were because we didn't have Alshon, because we didn't have our top guys. Matt Collins wasn't alive. Somehow he came back alive. We had so many guys that weren't even Wheaton. I think Wheaton was one of our receivers. Well, this is going to be the same thing. We're going to end up getting these players back week 6, week 7, week 8, and you're going to see a different football team. But here's the thing. I'm normally the guy that freaks out. I'm so pissed off. I can't believe we lost. But this is the power of knowing you have a good football team almost. Mm-hmm. And I'm not taking it for granted. I'm not saying we're this elite team. I expected 11-5-ish. So, well, yeah, we are. But I expect 11-5, right? That's 5 losses. 5 losses. You are going to lose football games. This is one of those. So if you expected 11-5, 12-4, there are going to be losses on your schedule. Here's one of them. But I'm not one of those guys this season, which is odd for me. I'm new to this. I'm new to this feeling. But it's okay. Like, it's okay because you see late in the game what this team is really made of. We can fix those errors early on. We can fix this terrible stuff that happens where we can't score early, hopefully. But at the end of the day, you need a certain it factor, and we've seen that even how we made the playoffs last year. We've seen the it factor in the way Doug Peterson has this locker room, and his adjustments might be the best and the second best. I'll give Bill Belichick how do you do? Second best adjustments in the league at half.
Yeah, I don't think it's ludicrous to say we win that football game if we're not banged up. I don't think that's out of pocket to say. Ifs don't mean anything in sports. At the end of the day, it is a loss. But going forward, from a mental aspect, from a fan standpoint, going forward, I still know, even though we lost this football game, I am aware, and this is a fact, they are still a very good football team. So this isn't the type of loss. It sucks. Are there some things that you could turn into excuses? Yes, but I'm really trying not to do that. This isn't the type of loss where I'm like, okay, we're not better than the Cowboys. Like, maybe if we lose at home to the Jets in an ugly game, something like that would be a situation where I'm kind of pressing the panic button a little bit. But this isn't the kind of loss where I'm sweating or freaking out like we see a lot of Eagles fans doing on social media after every loss.
Big time,
the
dude. This was a
reaction
battle.
is unnecessary after a game.
I know.
They almost pulled this game out of their back pocket after being horrible. They had 6 points at halftime. They couldn't move the ball. The whole offense is just terrible. Carson's ribs are sore. He's not making passes. And then we come out in the second half and we almost win the football game. And we could have if it wasn't for a couple yards on a few plays. So this isn't detrimental to the season at all. Like you said, you're going to lose football games. You're going to lose football games. So it's not an embarrassing loss at all.
No, it was almost playoff football in terms of physicality and how hard hitting it was. That game could have went either way. It was a flip of the coin, and we knew that going in, though, didn't we? It's going to be a 2-point game. It's going to be a 3-point game. It's ironic that we had the fourth and it wasn't fourth and goal, but we were down in their territory. We were inside their 20, and we had to execute on the fourth down. It's funny how it turns around, and it plays that way every time we play against the Falcons. But what were you feeling when Carson Wentz snuck it in there for the end zone, where he spiked the football? They ended up having a holding penalty. Was it a holding? I forget what the penalty was, but then they pointed the defense because originally I thought it was offsides. It was offsides. Dude, I couldn't believe it. I knew that there was too much time left on the clock to say it was over or anything, but the way that happened, the 8 for 8, moving downfield, the third down with the knee, I couldn't believe it.
With our injury-prone quarterback, I was wired up. When he got the first down, back-to-back QB sneaks, they got the first down the play before that, and then they ran the QB sneak again to get in. I'm sitting on the couch. I was like, run it 3 more times. Sneak it until he falls into the end zone. He got it on my buddy next to me is like, you don't want to do that. Oh, we're doing it. And we did it. And I was amped. I thought we were going to win the game, and then Julio Jones happened.
Yeah, it was crushing. I'm not gonna lie, that Julio Jones thing. I forget who was the corner coming off the block there. He got demolished.
Matthews?
Yes.
Avonte Maddox.
It was Avonte Maddox. Okay. Now I'm okay with Avonte Maddox. Like, I understand where he is in his career, but do you think as a fan base we might have overhyped how good he was?
We're going to overhype any corner that has one good game because for some reason, cornerbacks in Philadelphia are worse than the kickers on the Chargers. That's just a reality. I don't know. Ever since Asante Samuel retired, no one wants to defend wide receivers on this football team. Maybe we're just overanalyzing because we don't watch every other team the way we watch our team, and just the way that PIs are so petty nowadays, and the league's kind of turning into it's progressively turned into a more passing league. So I feel like most corners are getting burnt. Maybe we're just blowing it out of proportion a little bit, but it feels like we can't get anyone that can cover on this football team at all.
I think Rasul Douglas looked the best yesterday.
Yeah.
He looked awful in week 1, but he looked the strongest yesterday, in my opinion. I know. We're gonna have to find a way. We're gonna have to learn more too about. Yeah, well, that's going to be an issue. I thought Brandon Graham had a strong performance, especially early. Early in the game, BG was making plays. He was really getting out there, making some tackles.
He was big in the run game. He was heavy in stopping Devontae Freeman from getting loose, because that first drive they came out and they ran it down our throats. And then we made couple adjustments. You see Brandon Graham getting in the backfield, making a few tackles. He had that one play where he just no one touched him, and he blew Freeman up like 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, held him to a field goal on that first drive after they had run it down our throats a little bit. But yeah, BG played good last night, I felt. Just everything else is kind of just in the air. Maybe we need Chris Long to put like 15 pounds on and get back
No way,
up.
that dude's smoking weed in the mountains.
He
But
is.
speaking of overhyping people, I'm not saying we overhyped this kid because I think we realized what his what his skill set was really. But J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's ability to get around corners, like he doesn't have like a lot of speed, so he's going to have to learn to use his body to create space. It's almost as if he can't get away from anyone right now. And I mean, listen, he got thrown into the fire yesterday. He didn't expect to have to play that many minutes. Him and Carson probably don't have the strongest connection outside of maybe red zone stuff in practice, so it's a tough spot for him to get thrown into in the middle of an NFL game, and
Very
he's so
tough.
raw. But
He
yeah,
didn't just get thrown in there for extra snaps. He had to go out there and try to be Alshon Jeffery. Like, you're running Alshon's routes, and it's a tough mountain to climb when your first real game action as a player to step in and have to be step in for a Pro Bowl wide receiver in a big football game where the Falcons are playing desperate defense and they're out there trying to kill people. It's a tough spot for JJ, but I would like, obviously going forward, you want to see him and Carson get on the page a little bit more. Like I said earlier in the podcast, there was a few times early in that game where they zoomed in on Carson. Carson's like, listen, JJ, you're looking at me here. And he's just, I don't know. It's tough.
Were you a little concerned?
Were
you a little concerned with Josh McCown coming in? Were you like, oh my God, this is really happening?
No, I can say this with confidence. No one that I was with was confident, but I was certain they were just getting Carson taped up. I didn't think he was going to come back out in the half. I didn't think we were going to see Carson until the third quarter, but I just assumed they were maybe, taping up the ribs a little bit, let him take these last minute and a half off, and then we'll get you back out there in the third. He came right back. I wasn't concerned I didn't think Carson was staying out. I didn't think he was hurt.
I thought he had a rib injury.
Yeah?
I did. I mean, dude, he took some shots, man.
He did, and he was off afterwards, too.
I can't get over that drive. That drive where he was bringing the team downfield, wouldn't stop connecting with receivers. That throw, I mean, this is like the fifth time I mentioned the throw here. I watched it 3,000 times last night when I couldn't fall asleep. That throw with his knee, that would have been his signature play if we found a way to win that game.
Well, if Zach Ertz gets 6 more inches, I do think we win that game. The Atlanta defense was deer in headlights.
Oh, they had that gut feeling. They had that gut feeling.
We were going to score.
Well, even post-game, you hear all the Atlanta players saying, I'm so happy we snuck that out. I'm so happy we found a way to win, because they knew that they were on their heels. And that's the crazy part. Without the deep threat of Deshaun, when we're literally using Mac Hollins as our best receiver, well, Nelson Agholor, but, Mac Hollins is one of your go-to guys. This guy, we were questioning if he was even going to make the team over Greg Ward or not. We still come that close to winning the game. So I hate moral victories, but at this point in September, you can take it. You can just take it. You can take the moral victory.
Yeah, you can. Absolutely. Especially, like you said, in a situation like this where everybody was so banged up and there were so many plays. I've been saying, I feel like I was having this conversation with myself, I'm pretty sure, in my sleep all night. Like, there were so many plays that could have gone the other way. Inches. But I say football's a game of inches. I don't remember the last Eagles game where every play in the fourth quarter felt like it came down to an inch or two. It was a good game, though. It sucks that we came out on the bottom half of it because it leaves a weird feeling in your stomach. But it was a really good football game. It was a great football game. And I do think that I'd rather lose like that than get blown out. Not everyone's going to agree with me there, but I think that type of loss can help you moving forward, whereas a blowout is just completely demoralizing. I think that the Eagles know in their back of their minds that they could have and probably should have won this football game if they had just done one or two things differently. So it's not something I'm concerned about moving forward. I'm excited to get Detroit at home next week and move to 2-1 before that tough game in Lambeau.
Definitely. You nailed it. If you think if you prefer getting blown out, then I don't understand why you're in sports, because that's just the wrong way to think. But with that being said, the Eagles lose 24-20. We will be back. We will be okay. This is a September loss, and that can't go unnoticed. September. How many teams win championships in September? There are so many more weeks to come and so many more games to play. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and comment down below. If you're listening to it on the podcast app, leave that 5-star rating and a comment as well. We will see you guys next time.